Hello, my name is Sawsan Abu Zainuddin. I'm a Syrian architect and urban planner, and I'm a refugee based in London. I joined the DPU in 2014, specifically the course of Urban Development Planning. Before joining the DPU, I mainly worked in the private sector with architectural practices in Syria and in United Arab Emirates. But at the time, the revolution started in Syria, and I was politically active in trying to bring the democratic change to my country. And my passion to join the DPU was initially an attempt from myself to reconcile my passion for working in the urban environment and working as an architect and being engaged in urban planning with my political activism. It was basically the gap between how the urban sphere in general is dealt with as a purely technical sphere that felt wrong at the time because I was throughout the Syrian revolution and its development into a violent conflict, I was exposed face to face to the politics of the production and the destruction of the urban environment and what this meant for us humans who inhabited these spaces. So after graduation from the DPU, I joined the NGO sector and I worked on Syria for an NGO who works on the right to information and media development in general. But I still managed to incorporate knowledge I gained from the DPU while working there. So I worked with local communities on how they document and communicate their coping mechanisms when it comes to housing alternatives and infrastructure and access to food and urban agriculture, amongst other initiatives. After that, I slowly shifted into research while I was working with friends and colleagues to establish our social enterprise that works on developing alternative housing models to aid recovery in Syria. And since then, I've been working as an independent researcher with institutes such as the Syrian Center for Policy Research, the Syrian Women Political Movement, and other universities and NGOs. And I work in general on the spatial and socioeconomic and sociopolitical manifestations of the conflict in Syria, but also in neighboring countries. I work on issues of destruction and herbicide, reconstruction, recovery, politics of international aid to Syria, accountability in that regard, conflict economies, amongst other topics. As for second, we're currently piloting our first prototype in one of the peripheral towns in Aleppo in northern Syria, a region that's still not held by the government, so it's held by opposition forces. And simultaneously, we're also working into how to scale up this prototype to contribute to a wider movement in pursuing housing as a right in the development of Syria and in how recovery efforts by the different actors are unfolding in there. The DPU has significantly contributed to where I am today, I would say personally as well as professionally. I really owe a lot to the discussion, the critical discussions and the theories and the case studies and field work, and even the informal discussions I had with colleagues and professors at the DPU. It was the space where I was first exposed to the values of social justice, and how does this really translate in our reality, working with communities who were subjected to oppression, either politically or socioeconomically, and being able to see how they managed to break through out of that, even through little cumulative steps to enforce the change that they would like to see, gave me a lot of hope, but also a lot of inspiration of how I can rethink what's going on in Syria and how I can contribute to solutions in there. And throughout my work, either in research or in Sawsan, the social enterprise that I co-founded with friends, I often refer to colleagues and professors I met at the DPU, but also to readings and to resources and to the whole body of knowledge that I gained from there. And I've always found a lot of support in doing so. It's also the same for my advocacy efforts, where I work with Syrian activists here in the UK to try and influence the UK's government policies towards Syria, but also in my contributions to the to different mechanisms in the EU, but also that other international powers engaged in the Syrian conflict have put forward to try and support a political solution for Syria, and then hopefully support its recovery and reconstruction.